The battlefield was quiet, but the air itself seemed heavy with tension. Smoke twisted upward from broken buildings and scorched earth, painting the sky in dull shades of gray and orange. Amid the wreckage, a small figure huddled against a fallen beam. It was a little dragon girl, barely taller than a child, her scales shimmering faintly like molten gold under the dying light. Her eyes, wide and fearful, darted around as if expecting someone, to appear at any moment. Beside her lay her mother, a magnificent dragon, sprawled and motionless, her chest rising and falling only slightly. Panic clawed at the little dragon girl's throat. She had tried everything to wake her, nuzzling, coaxing, whispering, nothing worked. Then, through the haze of smoke and silence, she saw him. A human figure, walking carefully through the debris, his armor dented and his face streaked with soot and sweat. He moved with the ease of someone who had survived countless battles. "Wake up, Mama," the little dragon girl whispered, her voice trembling but firm. She pointed a small, scaled hand toward the veteran. Maybe that human will help you." The veteran stopped, sensing her gaze. His eyes scanned the scene, small dragon, massive dragon, ruin all around, but he hesitated. He had fought many enemies in his life, but nothing like this. Something in the little dragon's eyes stopped him, a silent plea, a fragile trust. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Smoke curled around them, and the faint sound of distant wings echoed like a warning. The little dragon girl tilted her head, her expression a mix of fear and hope. She had chosen him. And in that moment, the veteran realized that whatever he did next would change everything. The veteran crouched slowly, every muscle coiled like a spring, his eyes never leaving the little dragon girl. The battlefield around them was a graveyard of shattered stone and smoldering debris, the faint crackle of burning wood punctuating the eerie silence. He had fought countless enemies in his life, but nothing had ever felt quite like this. A tiny dragon, barely bigger than a child, had chosen him. And beside her lay a massive dragon, her mother, unmoving, vulnerable, and clearly in danger. He studied her carefully. Her scales shimmered in the dying sunlight, a fragile mix of gold and amber, and yet her gaze was sharp, almost intelligent. This was no ordinary creature. He had always known dragons were dangerous, even deadly. But the fear, or perhaps the desperation, in her eyes spoke louder than any threat. "Can you trust me?" he muttered under his breath, more to himself than to her. The little dragon girl's wings trembled as she stepped closer to her mother, whispering softly, "Please, help her." Her voice was tiny but carried a weight that surprised him. There was no command, no threat, only hope. And for the first time in days, he felt the raw pull of responsibility, of obligation that went beyond simple survival. Cautiously, he approached, kneeling near the mother dragon. His fingers hovered just above her massive chest, careful not to provoke a reaction. He studied the wound, deep, jagged, and bleeding slowly. Healing this was beyond him. But stabilizing her, keeping her alive long enough for help, perhaps that he could manage. As he worked, the little dragon girl flitted about nervously, her claws scraping against stone, her small wings flexing with tension. She can't move," she whispered. "If she doesn't wake soon, they'll find us. Her voice caught in a high-pitched squeak, and she froze, scanning the ruins. The veteran followed her gaze, and his heart clenched. Shadows were moving in the distance, fast, deliberate, and threatening. He had not been alone on this battlefield after all. Whoever, or whatever, was coming would not wait for introductions. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. His voice carried the authority of someone who had survived too many battles to panic now. But the little dragon girl did not step back. Instead, she tilted her head, wings quivering. It was as if she were silently asking him to protect more than just her mother, to protect her, too. The veteran's instincts screamed danger. He had seen ambushes before, traps laid by both men and beasts. He had never faced dragons in this kind of situation, but instinct was instinct. He scanned the area, eyes sharp, muscles ready. The shadows moved closer, shapes blurring, but he could see humanoid forms, or at least something approaching human in silhouette. Fast. Calculating. And coming for them. "Can she fight?" he asked quietly, nodding toward the little dragon girl. She can try," she said, eyes wide. "But she's small, not like Mama." Her gaze shifted back to her mother, her expression twisting with fear and guilt. I don't know if it's enough." The veteran clenched his jaw. "Then we'll make it enough together." He grabbed a piece of metal debris, sharp and jagged, and positioned himself between the approaching figures and the dragons. The smoke swirled around them, thick and choking, but he could see clearly enough. Whoever was coming, they were organized, and they were not here to negotiate. The little dragon girl shifted her weight nervously but did not leave his side. Her wings flexed, small sparks of gold light flickering from the tips. A nervous surge of magic, untrained but potent. The veteran noted it carefully. If she could control even a fraction of that, they might survive, but only if he could hold the line long enough. The first shadow stepped forward, and the veteran saw the glint of weapons. His eyes narrowed. Time to test trust. He reached out a hand, not to attack, but to signal the little dragon girl. Stay close. Follow my lead. She hesitated, her eyes flicking between him and her mother. Then, slowly, she nodded. She trusted him, had chosen him. And for the veteran, that tiny nod carried more weight than any order he had ever received. The shadows drew nearer, their footsteps crunching against broken stone. The veteran adjusted his stance, ready to defend not just himself, but the fragile creature that had placed her faith in him. And in that moment, the battlefield was no longer silent, it was charged with tension, the air thick with anticipation. A single misstep, a single mistake, and they would all fall. But the veteran, hardened by countless wars, felt a strange sense of clarity. He was not alone. Not anymore. And as the little dragon girl flexed her wings beside him, he realized something he hadn't admitted in years. Sometimes, the most unexpected allies were also the most important. The test had begun. The shadows were closer now, creeping over broken stone and scorched earth like a living tide. The veteran's grip on his makeshift weapon tightened, his eyes scanning every movement, every flicker of light. He had faced ambushes before, but nothing like this, nothing with stakes so fragile, so immediate. One wrong move, and both dragons could die. Beside him, the little dragon girl trembled, her small claws scraping against the rubble. Sparks of gold light flickered nervously at the tips of her wings, unsteady but unmistakable. She glanced at her mother, lying motionless, and then back at the veteran. Her eyes held a mixture of fear and determination, as if silently pleading, "Help us. Survive with us." The first shadow lunged, a humanoid figure wielding a curved blade that glinted in the fading light. The veteran reacted instinctively, slashing with his metal shard, deflecting the blow. Sparks flew where metal met metal, and the figure staggered back, momentarily stunned. "Keep moving," the veteran shouted, gesturing for the little dragon girl to follow. She hesitated for just a heartbeat, then leapt forward, small wings flaring. A sudden burst of magic shot from her claws, striking the second attacker squarely in the chest. The figure froze, letting out a startled cry before stumbling backward. It wasn't much, just a spark, but it was enough to buy them a few precious seconds. "Good," the veteran said, a rare note of encouragement breaking through his battle-hardened exterior. "Keep it up, but stay close." The little dragon girl nodded, a determined glint replacing some of her fear. She darted to her mother, crouching low, her hands tracing the wound. She murmured words in a language older than the veteran could understand, a soft hum that made the air around them shimmer. Her wings sparkled faintly, and for a moment, the mother dragon stirred, a low groan escaping her throat. The veteran's eyes widened. She's trying to heal her." "Yes, a little," the dragon girl said, her voice tight with effort. "But it's slow, not enough if they reach us." More shadows poured from the ruins, faster now, circling, cutting off their escape routes. The veteran made a snap decision. They couldn't wait for her mother to fully recover. They had to move. "We're going to get out of here together," he said firmly. "I'll cover you. You help her up." The little dragon girl hesitated but then placed a small hand on her mother's chest, eyes closing in concentration. Sparks of golden light flared brighter than before, flowing into her mother like liquid warmth. The massive dragon groaned again, shifting slightly, enough for the little girl to tug at her clawed limbs. "Almost," she whispered, her voice shaking, "just a little more." The veteran noticed a narrow gap between two crumbling walls. If they could reach it, they might escape the encroaching attackers. "There," he shouted, pointing. "Move now." The dragon girl flapped her wings desperately, nudging her mother forward. The veteran intercepted another attacker, parrying with his shard and rolling to avoid a second strike. Sweat stung his eyes, his muscles burned, but he didn't falter. Not now. Not when the little dragon's trust rested on him. Step by step, they edged toward the gap. The mother dragon groaned and stumbled but did not fall, aided by the steady magic of her daughter and the protection of the veteran. Each second stretched into an eternity, the shadows closing like dark waves. Then, with a final surge of energy, the little dragon girl pushed her mother through the gap. She followed, flapping as hard as she could, sparks flying from her wings. The veteran covered them both, striking down the last attacker before leaping through the narrow opening himself. For a moment, they collapsed behind the wall, panting, bruised, and bleeding, but alive. The little dragon girl pressed herself to her mother, who was finally beginning to stir, a weak but grateful glance toward the veteran. You saved us," the dragon girl whispered, her voice trembling. I don't even know your name." He shook his head, catching his breath. "Does it matter? Right now, you're alive. That's enough." Her wings drooped, sparks fading, but her eyes shone with something new, trust. She had tested him, and he had proven himself. In turn, he had come to realize that survival wasn't just about strength, it was about cooperation, about protecting those who depended on you, no matter how small or fragile. A distant roar echoed through the ruins, a reminder that danger was still out there, waiting. The veteran rose, brushing dust from his armor, and met her gaze. "We've got each other now," he said. "That's our advantage. Stick with me, and we might just make it through this." The little dragon girl nodded solemnly, her tiny hand brushing against his arm. It was more than an alliance. It was the start of a bond forged in fire, fear, and trust, the kind that could decide the fate of dragons and humans alike. And somewhere deep in the shadows, the enemies regrouped, unaware that the smallest spark could ignite the greatest storm. The ruins behind them were quiet now, but only deceptively so. Smoke still curled from broken beams and scorched stone, hiding the true danger lurking beyond. The veteran's muscles ached from the fight, but there was no time to rest. The enemies were regrouping, organized, relentless, and far from finished. The little dragon girl hovered close to her mother, her tiny wings trembling but her golden sparks steady now. Her mother, still weak, lifted her massive head slightly, letting out a low, pitiful groan. The veteran crouched beside them, his eyes scanning the shadows for the first sign of movement. Every instinct screamed that more attackers would come, and soon. "They're coming back," the little dragon girl whispered, her voice tight with fear. "Faster this time, stronger." The veteran's jaw clenched. He had fought many enemies in his life, but he had never faced anything like this, a swarm of unknown foes hunting not just him, but these dragons, defenseless and precious. He knew he couldn't let them reach her mother. Not for anything. "Listen to me," he said, placing a hand gently on her scaled shoulder. "I'm going to hold them off. You take care of your mother. Get her somewhere safe." The little dragon girl shook her head, eyes wide. "No. You can't." "I have to," he interrupted firmly. "If I don't, they'll get all of you. Do you understand?" Her wings flickered nervously, sparks flaring in panic, but she nodded slowly. She could see the resolve in his eyes, the kind of resolve that comes from a lifetime of surviving impossible odds. She realized then that he was not just a human, he was her shield, her weapon, and her only chance. From the shadows, the enemies appeared, faster than before, their weapons glinting under the fading sun. The veteran leapt into the open, positioning himself between them and the dragons. Every swing, every strike, was calculated, precise. He could feel his strength waning, but he could not afford weakness. Not now. The little dragon girl hovered above, watching, feeling the surge of fear and awe intertwine. She tried to help, sending sparks of golden light toward the attackers, tiny but piercing. Some of them were thrown off balance, shrieking in surprise as the magic struck. It was not enough to stop them, but it was enough to buy seconds. Seconds were all they needed. "Go. Now," the veteran shouted, gesturing toward a narrow canyon path that would lead them to safety. The little dragon girl flapped her wings furiously, guiding her mother along the path. Her mother's great legs trembled, but with the little dragon's encouragement, and her fledgling magic, the massive dragon moved forward, inch by painful inch. The veteran stayed behind, his back to the enemy, striking relentlessly. One figure after another fell under his blows, yet the numbers never seemed to lessen. Pain seared through his body, a burning reminder that he was only human, only flesh and bone. But he could not falter, not when the lives of two dragons depended on him. A massive shadow lunged from above. The veteran twisted just in time to catch the weapon, metal screeching against metal. Sparks flew, and he felt the impact reverberate through his arm. He gritted his teeth, swinging back, knocking the attacker aside, but another came immediately, forcing him to block, dodge, strike. The world narrowed to a single point: protect them at all costs. Finally, a faint cheer rose from the canyon entrance. The little dragon girl and her mother had made it. The veteran heard her voice call out, trembling but relieved, "Hurry, Mama. Keep going." He allowed himself a single glance at them before turning back to face the advancing swarm. His breath came in ragged gasps, his arms burned, but he refused to retreat. If this was to be his last stand, he would make it count. Every swing, every strike, was a promise, they would not die because of him. Then, a massive figure slammed into him from the side, sending him sprawling into the rubble. Pain exploded through his ribs, and his vision blurred. Yet even on the ground, he forced himself up, raising his shard, standing between the enemy and the narrow path to safety. The little dragon girl's sparks flared brighter than ever, a silent prayer, a desperate plea for him to hold on. And in that moment, amidst smoke, blood, and chaos, the veteran realized something profound. Survival wasn't just about fighting, it was about sacrifice. And he would give everything he had to ensure these dragons lived. Somewhere beyond the shadows, the enemies faltered, sensing the unbreakable resolve in him. But the veteran knew this battle was far from over. He was exhausted, wounded, and human, but he was not defeated. And as the little dragon girl led her mother further into the canyon, her eyes never leaving the veteran, she understood the truth: he had become more than a stranger. He had become their protector, their hope, their sacrifice. The canyon was narrow and steep, shadows stretching long across the jagged rocks. The little dragon girl led her mother carefully, her small wings still sparking faintly with gold as she used every ounce of her fledgling magic to keep her mother moving. The veteran followed behind, bruised, bleeding, and exhausted, but he refused to let himself falter. The enemies had not given up. Their shapes moved like dark smoke along the canyon walls, surrounding them, forcing the dragons to press forward faster. Every step was a gamble, one wrong move could mean a crushing ambush. The little dragon girl glanced over her shoulder at the veteran, her amber eyes wide with worry. Are you okay?" she asked softly. He gave a tired but firm nod. "I'll survive. You just keep moving. That's your job now." She hesitated, her tiny hands brushing against his arm instinctively. It wasn't just a gesture of gratitude, it was trust, fragile and absolute. She had chosen him, and now he carried the weight of that choice. The mother dragon's groans grew stronger, but she moved steadily, bolstered by her daughter's magic. The canyon was the only safe path left, and each step forward was a victory. But the veteran could see that they were close to the limits of both dragons' endurance, and his own. Suddenly, a figure stepped from the shadows ahead, cutting them off. Its blade gleamed, and its presence exuded menace. The veteran's heart sank, they had reached a dead end. There was no way forward without confrontation. "Stay behind me," he said, raising his shard. "No matter what, I'll protect you." The little dragon girl's wings flared nervously, sparks lighting up the canyon walls. "You don't have to do this alone," she whispered, but he shook his head. "Alone or not, someone has to hold the line. That's the choice I made the moment I saw you," he said, his voice steady despite the blood streaking his armor. The figure lunged. The veteran met the attack with everything he had, parrying and striking with precision. His body screamed in protest, muscles burning, blood stinging his eyes, but he refused to yield. Every blow was meant to buy time, for the little dragon girl and her mother to escape, for their lives to continue. Behind him, the little dragon girl whispered quietly to her mother. Sparks flowed from her wings, weaving a faint protective barrier around the massive dragon's body. It wasn't strong enough to stop the attackers completely, but it slowed them, giving the veteran the edge he desperately needed. Step by step, inch by inch, the mother dragon moved forward, guided by her daughter. The veteran fought with the fury of someone who had nothing left to lose, striking down attacker after attacker, his shard splintering against blades and armor. He felt the sharp sting of wounds across his body, but he did not falter. Finally, with one final surge of energy, the little dragon girl and her mother reached the top of the canyon. The sunlight hit them for the first time in what felt like hours, and for a moment, hope bloomed. The veteran staggered to his knees, his shard clattering to the rocks. He was exhausted, battered, but he forced himself to look up. The little dragon girl's gaze met his, her wings quivering slightly but her eyes steady. "You," she whispered. "You're our choice, our hope." He coughed, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, but managed a faint smile. "Then don't waste it," he said. "Keep going. Live. That's all that matters now." Her mother lifted her massive head, nuzzling her daughter softly, as if acknowledging the bond between the little dragon girl and the human who had risked everything for them. The little dragon girl hesitated for only a heartbeat, then spread her wings and pushed forward, urging her mother to continue. She cast a final glance back at the veteran, her expression a mixture of gratitude, fear, and promise. The canyon behind them was dark and treacherous, and the veteran knew he could not follow them all the way. But he had made his choice. He would stay, holding the line against whatever came next, because survival sometimes demanded sacrifice. The little dragon girl led her mother into the sunlight, her wings gleaming, sparks trailing behind them. For the first time, she understood the truth her mother had taught her long ago: hope was not just a feeling, it was a choice. And in that moment, as the veteran stood alone against the encroaching shadows, she realized that the smallest choice, a trust given, a hand extended, could change the fate of everyone. The real battle was not over. But one thing was certain: they had survived the first test. And sometimes, surviving was the beginning of something much greater.